Hi, my name's Chris Hunt. I have a hangar here at the airport. I do engine overhaul, got a little machine shop. Been here for quite a few years. Actually, I came here when I was a junior in high school as a line boy. Worked for a year and a half and then went to work for Harrison Engine Service when I graduated. Worked for them for, it's a long time ago. I don't know how many years, quite a few years, and then I moved on. I went to work in South Bend. My brother-in-law talked me into going to work there, and I drove by the South Bend airport every day to get to work, and I couldn't stand it. So about 6 months into that, I went over there looking for a part-time job and just to be around airplanes, and they were looking for somebody to do engine overhaul, and since I was experienced in it, they hired me in part-time, and about a year later, I went there full-time. And, I don't know how many years I worked there, for quite a while. And then me and John, I became friends with a man by the name of John Rantz. He was an airfoil designer, worked for Burt Rutan. After we became friends, we worked on a long easy he was building. And then he introduced himself to Burt because they were having problems, and he thought he could correct them, and that corrected it. And he became longtime friends with Burt, and we wound up building wind tunnel models, John and I, for the Ohio State University. I don't know how many years I did that. We built models for all kinds of different companies. And then the Voyager, the airplane that flew around the world, built a model for that. And, of course, everybody knows it made it around the world, which is a wonderful thing. When I was a little kid in Cub Scouts, my den mother was Rose Lennox. She was a school teacher in Rolling Prairie. You have to do something at the PAC meetings. And she said, your dad was the best airplane model builder in town. Why didn't you ask your dad? So I went home and asked my dad, and we went to the store and we bought a balsa tissue model airplane kit, and we built it and took it to the PAC meeting, and it was a big hit, and I was hooked. I started building models the rest of my childhood days, and I can remember Mom and Dad driving by the LaPorte Airport when I was little, and there was a bunch of warbirds parked out next to the north hangar there. Somebody here would always redo warbirds and sell them. And then when I was a junior, a couple of the guys that worked at the LaPorte Airport, Harrison Engine Service, lived in Rolling, and they were good friends with my parents. So my dad talked to them, and they always hired a kid to come here and mow the grass in the summertime, gas airplanes, clean the bathrooms, do whatever. So I wound up with a job here that year, and that's when I worked as a line boy until I graduated, and then went to work in the engine shop. I can thank Rose Lennox for introducing me into airplanes. That was what I did, knew of airplanes. Of course, when I was a kid, we all heard the sonic booms, the windows would rattle.
What about flying lessons and becoming a pilot?
I started flying then. I had an instructor by the name of Wally Yasko, and I didn't get it finished. I wound up getting married, kids, life gets in the way. So when I went to work at Stockart's in South Bend, I finished my license there, and I worked there for quite a few years. I never really done a lot of flying. It's the same thing, it's not cheap, and so Stockart's closed the doors. I went into plastics. My brother wanted to buy a 150, and so then we came here That was back in 1998. He bought a 150. We rented a hangar. And there was a gentleman that worked here. His name's Bud. And I had known him when I worked here before as a line boy and a mechanic in the engine shop. And he was having trouble with his engine. We got to talking, and I says, Bud, if you mind if I take it apart and see what I can find? I mean, you don't fly it now, so what do you got to lose? So we took it apart, found the problems, fixed it, and then he was back to flying his Chief. And then it's like, that was kind of fun. Maybe I should open up a little shop. So then I built a hangar here and went into business, and Bud was the best advertisement I had. So I've done a lot of engines on this airport already. Don't do too many today. Guys don't fly as much as they used to, so. But I still do some. And then I had machine equipment, and one of the guys here had a business that he was buying parts, and the guy was going out of business, so my machine shop business expanded. So I kind of do both now. And, I've been around airports most of my life. One year, they had a Farm Progress show in Rolling Prairie, and this guy came with a, I can't think of the name, a biplane. I can't remember the name of it. And he was towing a banner. And I would have to go out there and hold the corner of the banner up as he went flying by and took off, and then I'd let go. Oh, one day he come back, and he would come over the field going to the south, and he would drop. They had a latch. He just dropped that banner on the ground, and he would turn around and then come and land on the grass runway. Well, he dropped his banner, and we're watching him. He's not coming around. He's going down. And he landed in the cornfield outside the airport there. He'd ran out of gas. He landed over in that cornfield. The corn was gone, but it was kind of bumpy, so we filled up a 5-gallon gas can, took it over there, and poured it into this airplane. He took off out of the cornfield and came back to the airport and landed. So that was something different. And one other time, a guy landed with his gear up, and it was a Sunday afternoon. There was always a bunch of guys hanging out here, and everybody went out there, and everybody got squatted down underneath the wings of his airplane and got their back up against it and stood up and held it up while he pumped the landing gear down, and then he taxied up to the pumps. One other time, that when I was just been here maybe a couple of months, Wally come out and said, "There's a guy coming in." He called the tower in South Bend. He was up 10,000 feet over Lake Michigan, ran out of fuel. He said, "They're sending him here, and here he come." Just as quiet as can be. Just landed on a runway. We walked out and pushed him up to the pump, Yeah, and there was always a lot of guys hung out. It was just a place to hang out. They'd come and talk, and it'd be late in the day. It's time for me to close up, and a bunch of them would get together, rent the 172, and come on, Chris, lock the doors. Off we'd go somewhere in Chicago for a cup of coffee or supper or whatever, and then fly back. It was always a lot of fun. And still, when I came back in '98, there was the LaPorte Aero Club. A bunch of guys belonged to that, and every Sunday morning, there'd be a whole crew of them fly out of here, go somewhere for breakfast. So when I worked in South Bend Airport doing engines, I overhauled an engine for a guy by the name of John Rons. And we became friends, and he was building a Long Easy at the time, which is an airplane that Bert designed. And so I was like over there nights, weekends, helping him build this airplane, and he had taught himself airfoil design with the help of the professors at the Ohio State University. And we had built a model, the Long Easy, that we were building. It was kind of highly modified, different airfoils because John was designing airfoils. And he took that model to Ohio State and showed it to him. He flew down there he was consulting with questions and whatever. And they were real interested in it. And he told them, well, if you ever need any model work done, give us a call. So they called. They needed some help. We started building wind tunnel models. Well, at the same time, all about the same time this happened, the Long Easy, the airfoil, when you would get into rain, the airplane would pitch up and down in the rain, and nobody could figure out what was wrong. Well, John had designed an airfoil to take care of that. And so he sent all his information to Bert's brother, Dick. And Dick looked at it, and of course, he's the pilot. He took it all to Bert, and they ran all the numbers. They built an airfoil and stuck it on Dick's airplane. The rain trim went away. So now John is connected to Bert doing airfoil design on all of Bert's designs. When then came along the Voyager, the idea of flying around the world with this Voyager with no stops, one load of fuel, take off and land from the same spot. So John designs all the airfoils. So the canard, they want to verify the canard is not going to have problems, which is the front wing the canard is the front wing on an airplane. So I had built a model that they tested at the Ohio State University. Everything worked fine, and then the airplane took off and flew around the world and made it back. I guess there were some harrowing moments. That was a lot of years ago, actually. I think that was in 1986, I believe. So, and there was other, like Bert designed a Starship. I did some wind tunnel models for that. Some of his other designs, they would test at the Ohio State University. And the wind tunnel models, I built them for Boeing, Beech, Bell Helicopter, Sikorsky, General Electric, Westinghouse. The list goes on for over the years. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. It was a real interesting time. A lot of fun. It kind of, when we got into the wind tunnel model, they pretty much could predict what airfoils would do with computers, but it was still in the beginning stages, so they were using the wind tunnels to verify it. They still do, but, you don't have to spend all that money anymore. Go ahead and learn how to fly. Do not be afraid. When I worked for Harrison Engine Service, a little Mexican guy by the name of Lopez Garcia taught me a lesson that I've tried to hand to everybody, and I've lived my life by. If you want to do something, do it. Do not be afraid. You can figure it out. You can handle it. And certainly if somebody else has done it, why can't you do it? And even if nobody's ever done it, go for it. Continue. Keep trying till you get it done. You know what? Flying, can be scary. There's a lot to learn, but keep plugging away. Don't give up. You can get the job done. That's what it's all about. And have fun along the way. Don't be afraid.